Look at this. It's only May here in the Pacific Northwest, and we're already swimming in our backyard pool at 83 degrees. That's crazy. Our water this time of year usually sits around the low 50 to 60 degrees. But thanks to the AquaStrong HEX022 heat pump, we're in it early and in it warm. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the full install, show how fast it heats a 4,500 gallon above ground pool, break down the specs and the features, and talk honestly about whether this $1,400 heat pump is really worth it, especially when your pool didn't even cost that much. Now let's talk about why I even wanted a heat pump. So last year I gave in and finally set up a pool for our family. An Intex 18 by 9 by 52 inch above ground pool that fits snug next to our house. The kids love it, my wife and I love it, we use it as much as we absolutely can. But that's the problem. Here in the Pacific Northwest, pool season is really just mid-July through early September. And even then the water temperature using a solar cover doesn't really get above 74 to 76 degrees. And that's just too cold for my wife, and even me sometimes. So this year I wanted to change that. I wanted a way to double or even triple our pool season. Get in the water in May and even keep it going through October, maybe even into November. That's where the heat pump comes in. So here's what we're gonna walk through. The unboxing and setup, a real-world install with the Intex SX2800 filter system, how it actually performs in the cool Pacific Northwest weather, power usage, noise levels, and how efficient it really is. We'll break down the Smart app and the panel, and then final thoughts on whether it's worth the cost. Let's dive in. The HEX or HEX022 arrived well packaged. In the main box, you've got the heat pump itself, and under the unit you'll find a full kit of hose adapters, PVC fittings, a manual, a condensation tube, and foot pads for stabilizing the unit. They give you everything you need to connect it to pretty much any common pool system, whether it's Intex, Bestway, or something more custom. I was connecting it to an Intex pool, so all I had to do was unscrew the default connector and screw on the adapter that matches my hose size. Super simple. On the front, a gauge that shows refrigerant pressure as well as internal temp in Celsius and MPa, as well as your input and output lines. On the side, a touchscreen control panel and a drain port, and a 15 volt 20 amp plug. More on that in a second. Now on to the install. I wanted to make sure this setup was solid, so I started by leveling out a section next to the pool with river rock. Then cut up a wood pallet to create a sturdy base. For now, I actually left the heating pump mounted to the shipping pallet it came with, and so far it's holding up fine. But someday if the wood deteriorates or something, I might take it off and mount it directly to the pallet. I reinstalled our Intex SX2800 sand filter, which runs at 2800 GPH, and is a major upgrade from the stock filter. Okay, so now I actually have the heat pump sitting out here and I'm ready to hook it up for the first time. So let me show you what my plan is. This is your standard hookup right here. So we have the coming out of the pool here, we have the skimmer at the top, both going into this single input down here into the sand filter, and the sand filter goes up to right here. So the plan is I'm going to shut these valves off, disconnect this, and connect it directly right here to the one that says water inlet. And the one here for water outlet, this is where you have to buy the extra tube. I'm going to take that one, connect it from here, this spot, to that spot right there. And then we should be good to go and ready to turn it on. Shut this one off first, turn this off so the whole pool doesn't come out at me. All right, here we go. And if I can just do this quick. Oh, that wasn't bad at all. Now, just here to here, we're gonna be good to go. And these are actually the specific Intex spare hoses. I just order them off of Amazon, but there are more universal ones that are cheaper. I think I paid like 30 bucks for these, but you do get a set of two, so. All right, last connection. Get that nice and tight. So the first thing I wanna actually test before I turn this on is what happens if I turn the filter on without turning on the heat pump down here. So let's do that first to make sure it has enough pressure to get like all the way through the system. Now this is not the pump that came with the pool. We actually upgraded this. This is made for a pool, I think up to like 6,500 gallons or 7,000 gallons, which ours again is only 4,500. So this should have plenty of power. There it goes. Leaking a little bit right here. Tighten that up. So far, nothing is coming out. I'm an idiot. I forgot to open up the valves. Unlock and unlock here. Now, let's try this again. Blowing it out with the same pressure. Sweet. So no leaks anywhere. Full setup. Looks Now time to plug it in. So I have this outdoor outlet installed on here that kind of like extends out from it, so it should work pretty good. I did have to chip off the bottom section because this is a pretty big plug, but it should fit in here fine now. Let's see if it's on. Nice, check this out. It's gonna be hard for you to see this. I'll have to show it to you later, but you can see here we've got the water temperature, the water return temperature, and the water outlet temperature. So it's going in at 58 and coming out at 59. So it's gaining 1 degree each time it goes through the system, and it's set to 81 degrees Fahrenheit. So we want to crank that up to 83. So here's exactly what happened over the next few days while trying to heat the pool. All right, so day 1, outside temperature was between 65 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which so happens is the ideal temperature to start heating a pool with a heat pump. I ran the heat pump from 11 a.m. when I finished installing the heat pump to 7 p.m. that day. And the water temperature went from 58 degrees Fahrenheit to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. That means it went up 8 degrees Fahrenheit in 7 hours. That's over 1 degree Fahrenheit per hour. I mean, from what I gathered researching, that's what you would expect from a natural gas or propane water heater. That's pretty incredible. Now that night I ran the heat pump from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. and the temperature held steady at 67, which makes sense because heat pumps rely on a warm ambient temperature to create heat, which translate into heating the pool. Since it was dropping down as low as 45 degrees that night, there was no warm ambient air or humidity for the heat pump to take and use to heat the actual pool. So day 2, same outside temperatures, 60 to 70 degrees. I ran the pump all day long again and it climbed to 77 degrees. Now, my goal was 84 degrees. So we really weren't there yet, but at this point we're already warmer than our pool ever was last year during the summer months. Now on day 3, the previous night, I did not run the filter or the heat pump at all. And in fact, that night it also rained. So you had cold water going into the pool and it went from 77 down to 73 degrees Fahrenheit. But it was kind of humid that day and it climbed up to about 68 degrees. And so back again at 8 p.m. at night, it was back up to 77 degrees. And then back on day 4, didn't run it the night before again. It got to about 82, 83 degrees that day, ambient temperature, and the pool went from 74 degrees, which is what it dropped to overnight, up to 83 degrees by about 2 p.m. and then we're able to finally use the pool. So the whole family went in for our first swim we've ever done in our pool in May, and it was awesome. Oh, and you should know that while trying to get this embarrassing shot of me risking my life jumping into the pool, my neighbor happened to be walking by his fence and got soaked by me. And he said, well, at least it was warm. So I guess in a way that's the first endorsement that the heat pump was working. I should also note that during this time we were using a solar cover. It helps to hold the heat overnight and reduces the time needed to recover temperatures the next day, so that definitely helped. The big lesson I learned here with all this, and was confirmed over a lot of research and watching YouTube videos, and there's some great ones out there on how these heat pumps work, is that over here in the Pacific Northwest, you probably don't want to run your heat pump overnight when it's cold. Heat pumps extract warmth from the air, and they're most efficient between 60 and 80 degrees. So now instead of running my pump between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m., I've switched my schedule to running my sand filter pump between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. so that I can also run my heat pump at those same times. Now, of course, the argument could be made that if you ran the pool heater overnight for that 12-hour period, it would maintain the heat. So you wouldn't have to spend 6 hours the next day reheating it back up to where you left off. I don't know where the actual most efficient way to do this is, but the way I look at it is I don't want my filter and my pump running 24/7. So I told my kids, we're just gonna run it between 8 and 8 p.m. and whatever temperature it gets to where you want it in the pool, it's gonna be a lot warmer than it was gonna be if we didn't have the heat pump. So deal with it. Now let's talk about the app. The HEX022 pairs with the Tuya Smart app, which gives you full control over target water temperature, real-time inlet and outlet temperatures, heating, cooling, and auto mode, eco, standard, and boost mode. And you can set a timer to where you can make it come on and off at whatever time you want, which is really good if you're trying to match it with your filter system, which of course you need the filter to be running in order to use this pump. You also get a query info tab that shows things like compressor status, internal temps, and frequencies. Now you'll see all this stuff in the built-in touchscreen control panel on the heat pump itself. In fact, you'll see more on that, but I found that everything I needed it for was easily controlled with the app. Also, I'll mention about boost mode. It is supposed to be able to heat your pool faster than regular standard heating mode, but in my personal experience with my testing of it, I had boost mode running for one day, as well as regular heating mode for one day, and I didn't notice any difference. They both had a 2-degree difference between the water going in, the water going out. So maybe just in my experience, it didn't make much of a difference. It's hard to really say, but it wasn't so significant that I noticed. Now let's talk about the efficiency of this unit as well as the noise. So this unit puts out 2200 BTUs, which is how much energy it takes to raise 1 pound of water by 1 degree Fahrenheit. But the real star here is the 15.8 COP rating. COP stands for Coefficient of Performance. A COP of 1 means you get as much heat as electricity you use. A COP of 15.8, on the other hand, means every 1 unit of power you are using, you get 15.8 units of heat in return. For comparison, my hot tub gets a COP of 1, which means for every 1 unit of power I consume, I'm getting only 1 unit of heat put out, which means it is a power hog. This heat pump is way more efficient. Of course, a hot tub needs to be a lot hotter and maintain itself, so a heat pump would not work for that, but just as an example. And it's very quiet. It's rated at 48 decibels, which is actually quieter than my pool filter.
So the pump itself is really quite quiet. Like no one, my neighbor next door or anyone are even gonna even know it's on. The pump next door, the filter, is actually louder than this, but here's the difference. So this is the filter, and then this is the heat pump. And a lot of what you're hearing is actually this. My little robot vacuum is in there cleaning up the pool. Such an amazing, amazing tool. If you haven't seen my review on that, definitely check it out. It's on the channel.
So is it worth spending almost $1,400 on a pool that costs $959? For us, it's 100% yes. Before AquaStrong reached out to us for this collaboration, I had multiple different power heaters over the last 6 months in my cart. I just hadn't clicked buy yet. Knowing what I know now, I wish I had done it sooner. This heat pump takes a budget above ground pool and turns it into something you can actually use comfortably for way more months of the year. And honestly, with how much my kids love it and how much easier it is to get my wife into the pool, I have to call that a win. Now, here's one thing to remember about my experience and with the heat pump that I'm using. My pool is only 4,500 gallons, which means the heat pump that I'm using is rated for a pool much larger, being at 7,000 gallons. So the results that I got with my pool and how quickly it heated when it was over 60 to 70 degrees may not be the experience you get if you bought a smaller pool heater, maybe one made for 5,000 gallons, which I believe there are options for that. And people are most likely going to choose that option because they cost less. And to be honest, if you live in a hot climate where it's hot during the day, hot at night, and especially if it's humid, those smaller heat pumps are probably going to be just fine and heat your pool to a temperature that you're okay with in the time you're okay with. But here in the Pacific Northwest, where it's like warm one day, cold the next day, especially this time of year in the spring, I don't think that a heat pump that was rated for smaller than the one that we have would have a very easy time heating up our pool. I think if you're in our type of a climate, you're gonna wanna get one that's rated for something bigger than your pool so it has more power to keep up with the rapid changes of weather. I could be wrong on this, but it sure felt that way going through this experience. So there's a balance somewhere between getting the right size of heat pump for the kind of pool you're getting into, as well as the climate that you're in. So if you're thinking about getting one of these, I'll drop a link down below. And if you have any questions on the setup or what my experience was with this, feel free to drop your question down below in the comments. Sometimes I'm slow to answer questions and look at the comments because, well, I have a life, but I'll do my best. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.